Life has a peculiar way of bringing us together with people and situations we never anticipated. This is a tale of James, a high-profile yet aloof attorney, and Sarah, a devoted educator who once endured hardship because of him. Destiny reunited them during a critical moment, paving the way for a journey of recovery, atonement, and rediscovering life's true essence. When James unexpectedly suffered a heart attack on his way to pick up his daughter Mia from school, he never imagined that the person who would come to his rescue was someone he had wronged in the past. Despite the scars in their shared history, Sarah chose compassion over bitterness. From that moment, the lives of James, Sarah, and Mia began to change forever. Join us as we explore this uplifting story about forgiveness, the power of empathy, and how unforeseen connections can transform our lives. James hurried to the crowded city streets, his eyes repeatedly glancing at his watch. He was running late again to pick up Mia, his 10-year-old daughter, from school. The endless hours at the office had eaten up too much of his time, and now guilt tugged at him as he thought of his daughter waiting. As he pulled into the school parking lot, James felt a sharp pain in his chest. He stopped, gripping the steering wheel tightly, but brushed it off as a result of a stressful day. Taking a moment to steady himself, he stepped out of the car and rushed toward the school entrance. However, after just a few steps, the pain intensified. It felt as if a heavy weight was crushing his chest, causing him to stumble. His breathing quickened, his vision blurred, and James collapsed onto the pavement as the few bystanders around him watched in alarm. Sarah, a teacher at the school, was just leaving after a long day when she witnessed the scene. She immediately recognized James, the man who had once destroyed her career with an unjust accusation. For a brief moment, she hesitated, but her empathy overpowered her resentment. She rushed to his side, checking his vital signs, and shouted, "Someone call an ambulance!" From the school entrance, Mia emerged and saw her father lying motionless on the ground. She screamed, "Dad!" and ran toward him. Sarah quickly stopped Mia, gently holding her back. "It's going to be okay," she said, her voice calm and reassuring. "The ambulance is on its way." In that chaotic moment, Sarah not only stepped in to help James, but also comforted Mia, who was terrified by the scene unfolding before her. When the ambulance arrived, James was placed on a stretcher, unconscious. Mia tried to follow, but the paramedics held her back. Terrified, she turned to Sarah, tears streaming down her face. "Are you coming with us?" Mia asked, her voice trembling. Sarah hesitated. This wasn't her responsibility, but seeing Mia so frightened, she couldn't bring herself to leave. "All right, I'll go with you," she said, trying to keep her tone steady. At the hospital, Sarah sat with Mia in the waiting room. She tried to distract the little girl with stories and simple games, but Mia alternated between complete silence and bouts of sobbing. Sarah's heart ached as she watched Mia struggle to cope with her fear. Hours later, a doctor appeared with news. James had suffered a severe heart attack and fallen into a coma. There was no telling when or if he would wake up. Sarah learned that James was a widower with no close relatives in the city. The hospital social worker suggested placing Mia in temporary foster care, but the thought of leaving Mia alone in an unfamiliar environment was unbearable to Sarah. In the end, Sarah made a decision. "I'll take care of Mia," she told the social worker after a long pause. Memories of her past struggles flashed in her mind. The betrayal, the pain, the sleepless nights. But then she looked at Mia standing there with tear-filled eyes and realized that this child needed her more than anything. Despite the lingering scars of her past, Sarah knew she couldn't turn her back on Mia. Sarah brought Mia to her small apartment in the suburbs. The apartment had just one bedroom and a tiny office, but Sarah quickly transformed the office into a temporary room for Mia. While it wasn't as luxurious as James' house, it offered warmth and safety. The first few nights were challenging. Mia often woke up from nightmares, calling for her father with tears streaming down her face. Sarah would sit beside her, comforting her with stories and talking about their favorite books. Gradually, Mia would calm down and drift back to sleep. During the day, Sarah tried to maintain a normal routine for Mia. She took her to school, helped with her homework, and cooked her favorite meals. On weekends, they painted and played games together, creating joyful moments that helped Mia forget her fears and grief. Over time, Mia began to trust Sarah. One day, after visiting James at the hospital, Mia held Sarah's hand and said, "Thank you for taking care of me, Aunt Sarah. I like you very much." Her innocent words melted Sarah's heart. However, it wasn't always easy. Sarah struggled with conflicting emotions. She still harbored resentment toward James for the pain he had caused her, but she couldn't help feeling compassion for him and genuine love for Mia. Though her friends couldn't understand why Sarah devoted so much time to the daughter of a man who had wronged her, Sarah knew she couldn't abandon Mia. As the days passed, the bond between them grew stronger and deeper. 2 months later, Sarah's phone buzzed. It was a call from the hospital. James had woken up from his coma. She quickly informed Mia and brought her to the hospital. When Mia entered the hospital room, she immediately ran to her father's side. "Dad." Mia cried out, tears streaming down her face. James, though frail and thin, managed a weak smile and embraced his daughter tightly. Sarah stood outside the door, giving them space for their reunion. A few hours later, a nurse came to find Sarah. "Mr. James wants to see you," she said, with her heart racing. Sarah entered the hospital room. James was sitting up in bed, his eyes filled with regret and gratitude. "Sarah," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse, "I don't know how to thank you." Sarah remained silent, unsure of how to respond. James continued, "The nurse told me everything you did for Mia. You cared for her, gave her a home, and devoted your time to her. I don't deserve your kindness." With tears in his eyes, James did something Sarah never expected. He apologized. He admitted the mistakes of his past, the way he had treated her unfairly, and how his arrogance had caused her so much pain. To make amends, James picked up a checkbook from the bedside table. "Name an amount," he said. "It's the least I can do to repay you." Sarah glanced at the checkbook, then at James. Memories of sleepless nights worrying about bills and losing her mother flashed through her mind. But after a moment, she turned to look at Mia, peacefully asleep on the chair beside her father. "No, James," she said firmly. "I don't want your money. I did all this for Mia, not for you or any reward." James was stunned, clearly not expecting this response. "But there must be something I can do," he insisted. Sarah looked him straight in the eye. "There is one thing," she said. "Be a better father to Mia. She's an amazing child and deserves all your love and attention." Sarah's words hit James like a punch to the gut. For the first time in his life, he felt completely disarmed by the truth. While still in the hospital, James had plenty of time to reflect. At first, he tried to push the thoughts away, but Sarah's words echoed relentlessly in his mind, forcing him to confront truths he had long ignored. He remembered how he treated people around him, using power and money to control everything, and how his arrogance and lack of empathy had caused so much pain, especially to Sarah. For the first time in years, James felt something unfamiliar. Regret. Once discharged, James began his journey of transformation. He spent more time with Mia, listening to her thoughts and joining her in activities she loved. One day, James noticed Mia drawing and realized she had a natural talent for art. From that moment, he often sat down with her to draw, creating moments of joy and connection. Beyond his relationship with Mia, James also made changes in how he managed his company and treated his employees. He implemented fairer policies, listened to their concerns, and treated them with respect. Those who once feared his authority began to see a different James, one who valued compassion and recognized the worth of others. With Sarah, James didn't try to express his gratitude through lavish gifts or material favors. Instead, he showed it through small but genuine gestures. He invited Sarah to join father-daughter outings and always sought her input on Mia's education. James treated Sarah with sincere respect, no longer relying on his status to dominate interactions. At first, Sarah remained cautious, unsure if James's changes were genuine, but over time she began to see that his efforts were sincere. She started to see a different man, not the arrogant James of the past, but a devoted father and a person striving to right his wrongs. Months later, the lives of James, Mia, and Sarah had settled into a comfortable rhythm. They had become an unconventional family, bonded by their trials and their shared values of love and forgiveness. James became involved in every aspect of Mia's life. He took her to art classes, attended her school performances, and often sat with her to draw or read. Mia had transformed into a happy, confident, and vibrant young girl. The three often had dinner together at Sarah's apartment, talking about their days. Sarah, who had grown used to solitude, now felt the warmth of family. She even smiled when Mia suggested adopting a puppy, and soon Sarah's small apartment was filled with laughter and the pitter-patter of tiny paws. One autumn afternoon, after dropping Mia off at her art class, James and Sarah stopped at a nearby park. They sat on a bench, watching golden leaves fall around them. James suddenly spoke. "Sarah, I know I don't deserve it, but do you think you forgive me?" Sarah looked into James's eyes. They no longer held the arrogance of his past, but instead showed genuine remorse. After a moment of silence, she replied, "James, I think I've already forgiven you. Holding on to resentment only hurt me. Forgiveness set me free." James was overwhelmed with emotion. To him, her forgiveness was not just a relief, but a chance to start anew. On the 1-year anniversary of James's heart attack, the three of them sat on Sarah's porch, watching the sunset. Mia played with her puppy while James and Sarah talked softly. "I never thought my life could change this much," James said, smiling warmly. "And it's all thanks to you, Sarah." Sarah smiled back. "No, James, you chose to change. I just helped you see that it was possible." They sat there in a glow of twilight, unsure what the future would hold, but confident they could face anything together. Their journey was a testament to the power of second chances. A year and a half after the fateful day of James's heart attack, his life with Sarah and Mia had become closer than ever. James was not only a devoted father, but also a steadfast companion to Sarah. Together, the three had formed a true family, even if it wasn't official. One spring afternoon, as the three of them played in the park with their little dog, James suddenly paused and said, "Sarah, there's something I want to ask you." Sarah looked at him, slightly surprised by the seriousness in his tone. James reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box, and opened it to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. "Sarah, you saved my life, brought joy to Mia, and completely changed my world. I can't imagine my life without you." He paused, his voice trembling slightly. "I've never felt this certain about anything in my life. Will you marry me?" Sarah was overcome with emotion. Memories of the pain and struggles from the past flashed through her mind. But as she looked into James's earnest eyes and thought of Mia, the child she loved as her own, she knew her answer. "Yes, James, I will," she said, smiling through tears. Mia jumped up with excitement, hugging them both. As the ceremony concluded, Mia stepped forward with a hand-drawn card she had made. "This is for you," she said, holding it out to Sarah and James. The card read, "Thank you for being my family." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she hugged Mia tightly. "I love you, sweetheart," Sarah whispered. James knelt beside them, wrapping both in his arms. "And I love you both," he said, his voice filled with emotion. The wedding was simple yet heartfelt, attended by close friends, family, and even some of James's former colleagues who had witnessed his incredible transformation. During his vows, James turned to Sarah, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Sarah, you didn't just save my life. You gave me a second chance to be the man I was meant to be. Before I met you, I thought power and success were everything. But you showed me the true value of kindness, forgiveness, and love. You taught me how to be a better father, a better friend, and a better person. Today, I promise to honor the trust you place in me and spend every day proving that your faith in me was not misplaced." The crowd fell silent, their hearts moved by his words. Sarah, dressed in an elegant white gown, glowed as she stood beside James, while Mia beamed with joy as their flower girl. After the ceremony, the three returned to the house they had decided to build together. It was not just a place to live, but a symbol of the love, forgiveness, and second chances life had given them. As the sun set, James held Sarah's hand, smiling as they watched Mia play nearby. "Thank you, Sarah, for giving me not just a new life, but a family." Sarah smiled, leaning her head on his shoulder. "Thank you, James, for choosing change and for letting me be part of this journey." They sat together, basking in the peace of the present. Mia ran toward them, holding her puppy and laughing, her joy lighting up the evening sky. James looked at Sarah and whispered, "This is just the beginning. Together, we'll build a life full of love and memories." Sarah smiled, her heart full of hope. They didn't know exactly what the future would hold, but they knew they would face it hand in hand, as a family ready to embrace every moment together.